to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello. This is Matt Truman. Thank you for joining the podcast. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Today, we have on the podcast someone running for the United States Congress. His name is Mark Zetzer. Did I say that right?
You sure did. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Thanks for joining us tonight. So you're running for Ohio's 14th district. It's currently held by a long-time David Joyce. Am I correct in that?
Yes. 14-year, 7-term incumbent.
Excellent. So give us a little bit about yourself, your early life. Actually, let me do something real quick. Let me give you an introduction here. This is Mark Zetzer. Is an American First Republican running for U.S. Representative to Congress in Northeast Ohio's 14th District to make America and his home state great again. A retired private sector working man and family man, Mark knows from experience that America First means liberty first, because liberty is what makes America great. Amen. Born in Sandusky, Ohio in 1963, Mark grew up in Anderson, Indiana, where his dad worked in factory management for General Motors. Mark graduated from Indiana University in 1985 with a BS with a BS in business analysis. From there, he worked in sales and marketing in Chicago and New York before settling down in Shaker Heights, Ohio, to raise a family. So there's a little background, but give us, in your own words, where you come from, early life, and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, I grew up in Indiana and worked in different states. I was in 5 states, eventually ended up in Ohio, and looking for the American dream. This was an area known as the Rust Belt in my time, but in my grandfather's time, it was a booming industrial powerhouse. And then he had his own factory in Port Clinton, Ohio. And then my dad, by the time he worked in manufacturing, factories began to close around the Midwest during his career. And so by the time I went to college, it was like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to be working in manufacturing. So I had to start over in something else. But I was always interested in I was always an artist and a writer as a kid, so marketing and advertising is what I was getting into, as well as business. I'm very interested in business and in prosperity, because business is what drives the country and what drives prosperity. So I ended up working in a very similar field to my study of business analysis. So I worked at the Fredonia Group, a market industrial research company in Shaker Heights, and that's where I settled down, got married and raised a family. But I was in politics in high school, because the 1970s was a time of a lot of inflation, a lot of changes. It was a really rough time financially for much of the country, especially the factory town where I lived, where most people were employed by General Motors in 2 big factories, Delco Remy and Guide Lamp. And so by the time I was 13 in 1976, that was 50 years ago, and that was of course, the bicentennial. And right. We were doing a lot of reflection about America and where it should be. And even then, as a 13-year-old, I knew that America wasn't where it was, because I could see my family's living standard declining. But so I got involved, and my parents met Ronald Reagan. He was running for president against the incumbent Gerald Ford. And 76 was a rough year with inflation, the economy. There was a lot of factory closings. We could tell things were not right in Anderson, Indiana. So I followed Ronald Reagan's campaign. He almost won. He almost beat out the incumbent and went all the way to the convention in the summer, where he did end up conceding to Gerald Ford, who of course lost in the general election to Jimmy Carter. And that just made things worse. Democrat Jimmy Carter was a really rough time, high inflation, low growth, the factories, a lot of layoffs and strikes. So I got involved in my high school Young Republicans, and I actually canvassed for Ronald Reagan before I could even vote. I was canvassing in Democrat factory worker neighborhoods in Anderson, Indiana, and they were fed up with the Democrat Party, and those were the Reagan Democrats that swept him into a landslide victory in 1980. So I was thinking about, a career in public service or the government, because at that point I'm really getting involved. And after he was elected, I just started volunteering at every level of government. I went to Washington, D.C. with the presidential classroom, page for the State House. I was in a local city youth organization. So, but I think I decided not to go to law school in 1981. I went to Indiana University and went to business school because I thought, Ronald Reagan's going to do such a great job. He's going to fix the economy, and I can just go into business and pursue my fortune.
Right.
But of course, didn't work out that way. So anyway, I graduated in 1985, and I got a job in Chicago and was got laid off within a year, company-wide layoff. Then I moved to New York City and got a job in marketing there, and was going to get the job of my dreams. So I was on Wall Street on the day of the Black Friday or Black Tuesday. That was October 1987, and I was a shoo-in for this job at Chase Manhattan Bank. And the interviewer was literally called out of the interview and in the middle of it. And I thought, gee, I must have just blown it. Like, the guy just left the interview. And he comes back in and his face is white. He said, "Mark, we got to stop the interview. There's something going on I got to tend to." And I said, "Well, what's going on? Is something I said?" And he goes, "No." He says, "The stock market is crashing."
Oh, wow.
And I'm in Wall Street, so it was really weird. People are freaking out, and I'm walking down. And then as I'm going outside, people will say, "Hey, look up, because people might jump out of the buildings." He goes, "Keep your heads up." And I'm like, "Oh my God." He goes, "Yeah, that happened in the Great Depression. People jumped out of buildings, apparently." I don't know.
Yeah.
I walk out and I'm looking up and I'm looking, wait a second. You can't open any of these windows. They're all glass. So not only did I not get that job, but I lost the current job that I had. And so began my career in hospitality as a waiter and a bartender.
Yep.
For about 4 years, which is not what I went to college for. The money wasn't bad, but so then I was finally able to get what I call a career job in Shaker Heights. And things seemed to go well, because then by the 1990s, finally we got some general prosperity. And that was the result of the Republicans in Congress in 1994, led by Newt Gingrich, who had the contract with America. And he listed a set list of goals that they would do. Like, this is what we're going to do in the first 100 days of Congress to make the economy, improve the economy, and benefit the country. And he was real serious about it. And all the Republicans jumped on it, all the candidates, all the sitting Republicans in the House and the Senate. And man, they won a huge victory that midterm election. Huge. I think they had a 54-seat majority in the House and an 8-seat majority in the Senate. And man, the Republicans, and they actually did what they said they were going to do for the most part. And I don't know how old you are, Matt, but
48.
Okay, well, the 1990s was the only period of general prosperity that I've ever experienced. From 1994 to basically 9/11 in 2001, I actually saw gainful employment, and I wasn't making a lot of money in marketing and advertising. You don't make a lot of money doing that. But I was not only able to keep up with inflation, I was able to save money. Like, I actually saw deflation. The government talks about inflation. Oh, we have to have inflation. We have to inflate away all this debt. No, deflation is normal. Deflation is what made America great, because things became more and more and more affordable. naturally
You obtain
through
them.
prosperity. So you have abundance. So things just get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And that's what I experienced in the 1990s. I'd never seen that because I'd grown up with inflation, recession. That's all I experienced until around 1994. And where you go to the store, and the packaging was getting bigger and bigger and cheaper and cheaper. And they would say 20% more free, 50% more free. And you're just like, I can't even use all this stuff. And it wasn't just, it was gasoline. I bought a new economy car, a Civic hatchback in 1998. And I went to go fill it up for the first time. And the price of gasoline was 98 cents a gallon. And I just thought, man, why didn't I just get a bigger car? I got this tiny little car, And anyway, so I took advantage of the good times, when we make hay when the sun shines, and got married, bought a house, and started having kids. But I worry about my children. I have 3 children, and they haven't started their own families yet, even though they're in their 20s. My youngest is in high school, and I'm worried, like, are they going to have a chance to do that? Because I only had a small window in my lifetime to get a family started. And we actually wanted a big family, but then after 9/11, the economy tanked, and inflation went out of control again. And then the crash of 2008.
Yep.
My wife lost her business. Our income was cut in half. Then we had another child, unplanned. And then, so it was a struggle. Then, of course, Obama, another Democrat, comes in, starts messing things up. And so that's when I got in politics again, was 2012.
Okay.
After 4 years of Obama, I was like, oh man, because this is in Shaker Heights, and it was what's going on in Ohio. This tax revolt was going on in Shaker Heights back then, because they were leading the country in the rate of taxation, local taxation, as far as income taxes, property taxes, and they kept passing levies like every 2 years. It was, and so I was like, oh gee, well, the reason why they pass them is because nobody goes against these. Nobody organizes against these levies, right? So stupid me goes, I'll start. I called a group called the Shaker Heights Taxpayers Union. I thought, you're just going to participate in democracy, right? And oh man, immediately the city law department threatened to sue me and tried to quiet us and bust up our group. And most of my supporters were Democrats, because that district votes 90% Democrat. But as I find out, in a lot of these cities, you'll see that 80-90% people vote Democrat, but they're not all Democrats. They're just voting because they don't want to speak out and get yelled at by hardcore Democrats.
Right.
So if you're a Republican and you live in cities or inner suburbs, you don't come out as Republican. Because when I came out as Republican, I got a lot of grief, and ended up, by 2016, I lost everything. Even though I was nominated for city council in 2013, and then I was nominated for Congress in 2014. And this is a district, Ohio 11, that Republicans just can't elect anybody. But I wanted to use the opportunity to spread the word, like, hey, you can't have a one-party town or a one-party district. You have to have choices, and we have to spread the word that there are alternatives to tax and spend and decline. Because if you look at Cleveland and Akron, that's what the district was then. The level of economic and population decline is crazy if you ever pay attention to it. It's like it was bombed in a war or something and was never rebuilt. I mean, just huge. It's like 70% of the population gone.
Wow.
So this is a big problem that, of course, Democrats hide, and they're like, oh well, everybody's greedy and we just need to get more money from taxes. No. You need to grow organically the economy again. And so by 2016, I didn't win in 2014, but I was going to run again in 2016, and then I got my company got bought out, and I got laid off after 25 years. And then my wife divorced me. These were all Democrats. My employer were Democrats. My wife is Democrat, my ex-wife. and because people were going nuts over Trump. Because then I was like, oh well, Trump is. I was going to vote for Rand Paul. So Rand Paul, actually, his Republican Liberty Caucus endorsed me in 2014, even though I didn't really raise money. I wasn't expected to win, but I used the opportunity to spread the word about liberty and prosperity, how that could turn things around. So I was gunning for Rand Paul to run for president. He was in the presidential primary in 2016, and then he dropped out early in 2016. And so then I was watching this debate with Donald Trump, and I knew who Donald Trump was because I lived in New York City. So New York City, Donald Trump was the king of New York City in like the 1980s because Donald Trump led the real estate boom or the real estate revitalization of Manhattan, which was because the 1970s, New York City and Manhattan really suffered. A lot of people moved out. There was crime, urban blight. The economy was doing terrible. But Donald Trump led the revival in the 1980s. He was the symbol of it, of American optimism and can-doism. He helped rebuild the ice rink in Central Park. And
Rockefeller Center there?
Well, not Rockefeller Center. There was an ice rink in Central Park that had just been abandoned and not kept up. And he took, that was like one of his projects. He wasn't even in the government. And of course, back then, Donald Trump was a Democrat. He was a New York Democrat. But still, he was a can-do guy. He was a private sector guy. He never worked for the government, never. And so I remember New Year's Eve, I think it was 1988, and we were ice skating in the brand new skating rink in Central Park at night, and we're thinking, thanks, Donald Trump. But so I knew about him, and I'd seen him at CPAC, and I was when I saw him in the debate, it was with so Jeb Bush, the brother, of course, of George W. Bush and the son of George Bush Sr. He was the favored Republican candidate, and Donald Trump was in a debate with him, and he just destroyed him. He looked him right in the eye. He said, the Iraq War was a big, fat mistake. And I was like, oh, my gosh. I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he said that. Like, no Republican, like even Rand Paul, like didn't have the balls to say it that way,
Right.
Even though Rand Paul and Ron Paul, his dad, were very anti-war, pointless wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, oh my God, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. This is amazing. This guy's great. He's from the private sector. He's really serious. And he really understands, reality. And so I started posting on social media, I'm going to support Donald Trump. And that's when I lost everything. Within 2 months, I was unemployed, lost my job. And then 2 months later than that, I was divorced, lost my house. And so, and I never gave up supporting Donald Trump because I'm like, well, I'm going to get a new job because he's going to get elected and the economy's going to do great. So, but it took a while. It was weird because like, why can't I get a job? Like I've got tons of experience. I took me so long. I was trying to get work anywhere. And finally, I had to get a whole new career in surveying, working outdoors for the gas company.
Okay. How do you like doing that?
Well, that I was always an outdoorsman, and I was really big in scouting with my sons. And I always loved to go camping and hiking anyway. So I kind of liked it. I loved it, actually. I got healthier because, if you work at a desk job a long time, sometimes you get back problems. And it was good to be walking around. And the problem was the pay was a lot less than what I was making, and I still had 3 kids in child support.
Yep.
And so it was rough because I basically had to start over at the bottom at age 55,
Oh, wow. And
but I never gave up supporting Donald Trump because I knew he was going to turn things around, and he did. If you think about the economy back in, say, 2018, 2019, even through 2020, inflation was low. The economy was growing. I kept working. I was considered an essential worker. I kept working during the pandemic. My life really didn't change at all. We were surveyors. We worked outside alone. We didn't have to wear masks. We didn't have to do anything. We just kept on working. But of course, it was weird because suddenly that spring of 2020, everybody's at home. Like normally we go up because we worked on people's like 80%, 90% is we're mapping pipelines on homes and residences. We also did commercial and industrial. But suddenly we were working down, I worked in 22 different counties throughout Ohio. And it was like everybody's home. The parents are home. The kids are home. The parents are working at home. The kids are going to school remote. And
it was wild.
It was, and there's no traffic on the roads. Yeah. So, but, obviously things changed that year big time.
So what got you into running this time? What did you see that you said, you know what, I got to run for the 14th district?
Well, I obviously, after losing everything and apparently over politics, which I thought was ridiculous, but it happened. Yeah. People say about being canceled. I think it's hard to say, well, why, maybe it was just a
sounds like
situation.
You got cancellation.
Yes, I think I can't really prove it, but it's like, why, they say, as Steve Bannon says, in politics are no coincidences. But I said, I'm getting out of politics. I'll never get back into politics again. Yeah. I have to rebuild my life. I've got to be finished getting my kids through school. I've got to get a house. I got to maybe get remarried or something. And so I just focused on that. And I ended up moving out in 2019, I bought a house in Geauga County. So that's the 14th district there. And I was familiar with Dave Joyce because when in 2014, I had met him. Part of the 14th district included Cuyahoga County. So I think I'd met him. But also my friend and family lawyer, Matt Lynch, was running against Dave Joyce in 2014 and in 2016 for Congress. So he was doing what I'm doing now. And so I was pretty familiar with him because Matt and I were both candidates at the time in the primary. So about like this time, 12 years ago or 14 years ago, we were both candidates in the Republican primary. So we were kind of seeing each other on the campaign trail. So I was aware of Dave Joyce, and I knew that he was definitely, even then, what Matt was saying, he wasn't a good conservative. And I know Matt was certainly, and I'm surprised Matt didn't win. But so I was aware of Dave Joyce. And when I got into his district, though, I wasn't like, I'm going to go after Dave Joyce. No, I'm just like, I'm going to rebuild my life. I'm going to stay out of politics. But then, of course,
Dave Joyce, he was one of those the limited Republicans that voted for the kill switch bill that they just
right. That was his most recent, blubber because, man, but I've looked at his voting record, man, going back 14 years, man, he's really a Democrat. That's what a rhino is. He really votes against Republicans half the time. And that was awful because Thomas Massey of Kentucky actually put forth an amendment like, hey, we got to cut this out. This is a poison pill that we cannot accept.
And for those watching, what that allows is for the government to add kill switches to your vehicle. So now you don't own your vehicle. They can just shut it off at any time, no matter, like it's wild. And he voted for that. That's some draconian.
Well, most Republicans voted for it because it's part of this giant bill. And of course, that's what I'm running to stop. It would be like, it's called the One Subject at a Time Act, where you can only one law can only have one law in it, one subject at a time. And then everything, and also every bill has to be read. So this is what happens. You get these, everybody piles on all their favorite legislation and it becomes a gigantic bill. And then, of course, it's filled with what we call poison pills. You got these bills that are just awful that, you would never pass on your own. But then, hey, we're at a deadline. We got to fund the government. And so people pass it. And then, of course, it leads to massive overspending and debt because there's huge bills. Everybody gets their little piece of the pie and it becomes a gigantic monster. But that was one that had to be cut out because that's the automobile. You're going to disinvent the automobile. Think about that. Autonomous mobility is what an automobile is. It's a combination of a word. You have a machine that can drive you anywhere, and it's transformed the world. It's transformed humanity. It's probably one of the greatest inventions ever. and the government wants to kill it.
Right.
Wants to-
When your kids get their driver's license, you talk to them about, hey, it's nice. My daughter just got her driver's license not too long ago. I said, now you have freedom. That's nice to have that freedom to go. You got to check in, obviously, and do all that and ask your parents, but you have the freedom to move about. You don't have to rely on mom and dad to take you every doggone place.
Oh, I know. My son's too. My son is 16 and he's getting his driver's license and we're letting him drive, but he doesn't have his own car. And it's still a pain in the butt because now he wants to go out and it's like in the middle of the night. I got to pick him up or something.
Right.
So, yeah, I totally get it. But think about what the government is doing. And this is just awful. So Thomas Massey's probably one of my idols in the House, the U.S. House. And he had the amendment. So he gave every Republican a chance to vote for it again. Like, are you really going to vote for the kill switch on an automobile? And sure enough, Dave Joyce voted against the amendment. I don't think Dave Joyce has voted for a single Republican amendment. Looking over his voting record, a lot of times Republicans will put amendments to like, hey, we got to cut this. They'll try to cut spending. They'll try to cut poison pills out of it. So there'll be Republican amendments, and Dave Joyce votes against almost every Republican amendment to a bill. And this goes back 14 years. So that was just last week or 2 weeks ago that he did that.
So I think before we got on, you were talking about you've already turned your signatures in and everything.
Yes.
For those watching, verification is tomorrow, which is February 4th. So that's the deadline. They'll verify them throughout the week, and then they'll certify everybody.
They'll certify them, right?
So, do you anticipate anybody else besides yourself running against Dave Joyce, or do you think you'll be the only one?
There's a possibility that there's a woman in Trumbull County, former county commissioner who might run, but we'll probably know tomorrow.
How long has Dave Joyce been in Congress?
14 years. So this is 7 terms. He'll be going for his 8th term. I think it's up to us, the people, just to term limit Dave Joyce by voting him out. We have a chance to do that. It's a contested primary. And we need somebody like me from the outside, from the private sector, who is going to get something done. In the private sector, you have to have results. You have to be accountable. And that's how the success of Donald Trump. He doesn't put up with BS or incompetency. And this is what I bring, even though obviously I'm not wildly successful like Donald Trump. I still have worked in the private sector for 47 years. And so I know how things work in the real world. And so when I look at Congress, I'm just like, oh my God, how do people live with themselves and with such massive failure? I mean, so many people are being harmed by inflation, which is the worst I've ever seen. And I grew up in the 1970s, and this inflation is way worse.
Yeah. So what are some of your ideas that you want to bring that would contrast Dave Joyce?
I think, first of all, the position is an opportunity for leadership, which I don't see happening from Dave Joyce. The leadership is like what I was talking about in the 1990s. Congress is really should be in charge of legislation and legislative goals. So we're used to having like a President Trump, a real strong president who comes in and is like, this is what I'm going to do, right? But really, he can't do anything. He has to get Congress, the Senate and the House to pass laws to enact that. He can do executive orders, for instance, but he can't really he can set an agenda, but he can't make it happen.
Right. So, he needs good Republicans to help push forward that agenda, and
not someone like Dave Joyce who's going to vote against
to help you guys get your agenda set too, because you got to bring something back for the district.
Right. And that's what the midterms, that's what Newt Gingrich did with Congress in the midterms in 1994. So there's talk like, oh my God, the Republicans are going to lose the midterms in 2026. And they're like, oh, we better consolidate and hold on. And President Trump has endorsed every sitting Republican in the House and the Senate, except for maybe, Thomas Massey or
Right.
Rand Paul, who they're the good guys. Like they're the ones who are actually trying to follow the Constitution in the budget. But so of course, Donald Trump endorsed Dave Joyce, and it just, I respectfully disagree with the president, obviously. And I've said that in posts. Maybe I'll put out a letter. But I think that I want to be like Newt Gingrich. So I'm putting together a list that I want all the Republicans in the House and the Senate and all the candidates to sign. So because this is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, this one is, I want to call it the Declaration of Independence from Taxes and Tyranny. And it's a list of legislative goals and grievances. Like, this is what's wrong. Like, there's some really big problems in the government, obviously, and this is how we're going to fix it. And we're going to have legislative goals for the first 100 days in 2027. But they could start doing it now. They're in session now, right? So they could, if this gets enough, publicity, and this is something that I would offer to Dave Joyce, like, hey, this is a legislative goal. You can take this list and go to Congress and start use the bully pulpit and get these laws passed, because this, I think, is what's going to get Republicans to win big in the midterms, to not lose seats but actually gain seats. Because
these midterms are really important,
right? And our margins are so slim now. We need to gain seats, like big time. And we could if you could we could do that if you offer something like, what specifically do Republicans are going to do for you? Because Republicans are generally, they don't communicate well, and they're kind of just like, well, we just want to keep things the same. And I'm like, no, that's why the Democrats are moving, because the Democrats are promising everything. We're going to give you everything for free, free housing, free healthcare, free education.
Right.
And so people are like, because we're already halfway to socialism. And so the economy's depressed and
they're electing socialists.
Right. And they're like, well, the Republicans aren't offering any solutions. And so the Republicans have solutions. They just aren't communicating them. And you need to get focused and have a list. So this is why the Declaration of Independence, 250 years ago, got the attention of King George III, right? Got the attention of the British Army. It's the world turned upside down, right? The English colonists were like, no, we're going to separate from England, from Mother England. And so this was a big deal. So they spelled it out. This is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. And so the Declaration, and I'm still writing it, but I can tell you what's in it. What's going to be in it is, first of all, and this is based on, I've been going around since April in Northeast Ohio. So this district is 6 counties in Northeast Ohio: Lake, Ashtabula, Trumbull, Geauga, Mahoning, and Portage County. So I've been asking people, what are your concerns? What do you think about the incumbent Dave Joyce? And most people want to replace him, like over 60% that I've talked to. It's like, we got to get rid of Dave Joyce. We don't like him. So the main thing, of course, is property tax. Now, we're trying to eliminate it here in Ohio, and I think a few other states, but President Trump has already hinted that we should eliminate property taxes nationwide. And I think that can be done. And that's a great, wow. I mean,
that can
really motivate people.
Imagine that.
Right. And so you think about what it says in the Constitution and the Declaration is that we are endowed with certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And sometimes you
John
hear
Locke,
the term
life, and liberty, and property. Yeah.
Yes, property. Right. So that's the other thing. It's like, I like to say life, liberty, and property. Well, how do you pursue happiness? How do you measure that? Life and liberty are very well documented, very specific. There's laws that protect life and our liberties. But how do we protect our pursuit of happiness, for instance? Well, obviously, the pursuit of happiness can be, measured by property. I mean, your home. You live your life in your home. If you want to have happiness and pursue happiness, you need a home base to do that, to take care of your loved ones and your family. But it's not just your home; it's your business. It's you want to be independent. It's your structures and property and land anything that you own that can help you achieve independence is how you pursue happiness. Because think about it, you wake up in the morning every day, and is the day your own, or is it somebody else's that somebody owns? And I think if you have more control over your day, you are happier because you're pursuing what you want to do and how you're going to be happy. So pursuit of happiness, I think, can be measured in property, and therefore the government, the federal government, has an obligation to protect property, to protect it from taxation, to protect it from confiscation. Just like you would protect your life and your liberty. Property is sacred and sacrosanct. You keep your hand, the government keeps its hands off property. So that would be one of the main things. One of the things in the Declaration of Independence for 2026. And next one would be we have to get rid of the income tax. The federal income tax didn't even exist before 1913. The federal government was funded by tariffs and user fees. And of course, the federal government was limited by the Constitution. But what we have now is insane. You know what the compliance cost is for the IRS? The IRS cost Americans, not the government, cost Americans $546 billion every year just to comply, to comply. So that's, I think, 10% of what they collect. They collect maybe 5 trillion. And so that alone right there is just a reason to get rid of the entire IRS, get rid of the entire tax code. And we have a flat tax. We do have a flat income tax that was passed by amendment. It was done properly. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution, and it set a 1% flat federal income tax. So that's what we should go to. We should replace the IRS with a 1% flat federal income tax. And of course, the other argument, of course, is that the IRS is collecting all your data. They're violating their Fourth Amendment rights to privacy, against searches and seizures. I mean, they know everything about you, and also all your data is stored in their database. It could be hacked, it could be compromised, it could be stolen. It's very dangerous for them to collect all that money, the IRS. So there's two main constitutional reasons why the IRS should be eliminated immediately, replaced with a 1% federal income tax. And these two things alone are the centerpiece of my Declaration of Independence for 2026. And I mean, can you imagine if all the Republicans said this is what we want to do, how popular they're going to be?
Yeah.
Everybody's going on and vote for them. Anybody
who's taxes are out of control in a lot of places. There's the you were talking about property tax. There's that citizens initiative that's running around Ohio for signatures to get that on the ballot to remove property tax here in Ohio, which is amazing, but it's the people that have to get it done sometimes. So that's a great idea.
Right. And I think we have to offer them something, and it's not like you're taking away from the government. You're giving it to the people, and the economy is going to do so much better that the government is going to still collect revenue, probably more revenue at much lower tax rates for the people, because people will imagine having all this money and you don't waste time trying to comply. And that way you would cut regulations across the board. The third thing I would say is the end of prior restraint. So prior restraint is the government. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying tyranny. So prior restraint is often referred to in freedom of speech. That the First Amendment is often talked about as one of the main freedoms that we have. And so people say, well, you can't have prior restraint. You can't have censorship. And we've seen censorship explode, especially since 2020. But prior restraint of actions is also still occurring. Of course, the federal government has basically taxes and controls almost everything we do. This is what I said on my announcement. I don't know if you've seen it, Matt. When I announced in September my candidacy, I did a video on the beach in Lake County at Mentor Headlands, and I'm like holding up a flag, and I'm like, the government taxes and controls nearly everything we do, and this is our war of independence. And this is, it's a tribute to the Battle of Lake Erie, but it is. It's so prior restraint is the deep state. This is what the deep state having a regulatory power over almost every aspect of our lives. And they're assuming that we are guilty, that everything, if we want to produce or build something, that we are guilty of a crime before we've ever done anything. We have to seek permission. Like, oh, we better ask, fill out these forms. And it's not cost effective because, how many people are actually going to commit crimes or negligence? It's such a small amount, but you're penalizing the entire population over the odd fact or chance that someone is going to cause harm, because if they do, we have laws against that. Pollution, for instance, pollution is a crime. I mean, if you cause property damage or if you make somebody sick, that's a crime. I mean, but you can't be charged with a crime until after you've committed it. But prior restraint, it says, oh, well, you might cause pollution, so you're going to have to do what we tell you and go through all these permission plans and forms if you want to build something. And it's just destroying it's suffocating innovation and growth and opportunity. And it's the cost, it's just not cost effective almost across the board. Healthcare, my God, healthcare is another issue. I mean, healthcare should never be so expensive like this. Healthcare should be really cheap because it's based mostly on information, and we've had an information technology revolution. But where's the cost savings?
Right. There's a lot of folks batting around the idea, like you have a menu similar to a menu. If you go into a restaurant, you should know exactly what you're paying for when you go in to see your doctor and they order testing or drugs or whatever. So
you never know what anything costs.
Right.
I've been injured. I had to quit. Right. I had to quit my job because I got 3 major work injuries. So I had, unfortunately, been in the emergency room and gotten a lot more familiar with the hospital system. And they're like, well, we need you to do all these things. And I'm like, well, how much is all this cost? I have a $6,000 deductible plan, and nobody could tell me what anything costs. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you run a business? This is crazy. And I didn't have serious injuries. It used to be insurance was like, if you had brain cancer or something serious, or you lost legs or limbs. But if you just had a minor injury or even a broken bone, you could just go to the doctor and get it fixed. It wasn't, and you just pay them. You just pay them cash. I also work for Americans for Prosperity, and they have some ideas. And it's similar to how a normal business would operate. But like, you don't even need insurance for most healthcare. You could just go to who's your favorite doctor, and you could just, have like a subscription to them, an annual subscription, and just pay them a little bit a month and go see them. You're not paying any insurance. You're not paying hospital. You're not going through all the red tape. And it's just direct. It's called, I think it's called primary care plan, and then you have an HSA, for instance. And these are things why do you have to get this through your employer? It doesn't make any sense. You're locked into what your employer gives you. The whole thing is so messed up. It could be really cheap. As education would be another thing too. I mean, education, think about it. everything, you can access the entire sum of human knowledge in the palm of your hand. And how has education adapted to that? It hasn't. And you could think, well, parents need daycare. They need a place to send their kids that's safe, and so that both parents could work. And then they're paying all these taxes for the schools. And it was like with my family, is like when we had 2 kids in daycare, my wife and I thought, my God, basically one of us is working for the daycare. And so we're just going to work to pay somebody else to raise our own kids. So she quit her job and started a home-based business part-time to like raise her own kids, imagine that. And it was, they're our kids. Well, of course we want to raise them. And that's the way, really schools have become like a daycare, but they're not even safe. Like, kids are getting shot. They're getting beat. They're getting beaten up. There's all kinds of bad propaganda being, the teachers are teaching them bad thoughts. And it's like, what is this? It's really not a good place. And I'm not saying you get rid of schools, but parents need to be able to choose. Do you want formal education? Do you want informal education? The government should not be involved at any level, state, federal. It's up to us. And parents and students pay for it only. Why are property owners paying school taxes for schools? Doesn't make any sense. It's so disconnected from what they are and what their needs are. So, I mean, it would be if you start at the federal level, the government grew over, hundreds of years from the bottom up. Now we got to start devolving it from the top down. And this is the kind of leadership that I want to provide in Congress, because I'm coming from the private sector where we've got to fix things. I don't want a career in government. I don't want to, waste a bunch of time trying to go along to get along or gain politics. Like Thomas Massey of Kentucky, he doesn't have any friends in DC, and that's good. And he likes it that way. He has his own family, and because he's results oriented, like Donald Trump. He's results oriented. Donald Trump doesn't care about who he has friends with, right? He says what he wants because he knows he wants to get the job done. So this is what we need to bring, and I would hope more candidates throughout the country come from the private sector and run for office.
Excellent. So I read in your plan, when I was reading in your plan, there was something you mentioned, selling federal assets. What are your thoughts
Right.
on?
So that would be another issue, of course, is the massive debt. And it's hard to even fathom the level of debt. It's 39 trillion. It's going up like 2 trillion a year. I mean, it's out of control. And that's just the current account debt. But we also have the unfunded liability debt. And this is Social Security, Medicare. Everyone who's alive today is owed these programs at some point in their lives. So the unfunded liability debt, you don't even want to know how much that is. It's over $100 trillion. And the government is just like, oh, we're just gonna print the money, we'll inflate it. We'll inflate away. That means we're gonna have 10, 20% inflation in prices every year. No, we can't have that. So this is no public debt. This is one of the things we have to offer and we have to promise Americans is no public debt. It starts by, we need a financial document. What is the federal budget? What is the federal, you have assets, you have liabilities. All they talk about is liabilities. How much do we owe? How much are we in debt? But wait a second, the federal government owns assets. It owns land, it owns buildings, stockpiles of resources, structures, bridges, roads. It owns assets. So we need to know what's the value of all these assets. Now and they hide this information, and this just really bothers me, because you even have a whole department of the Treasury. You have a whole Department of Commerce. Why don't we have real information that we need from these vast agencies? But we don't. They just use these agencies to lie to us. But I've kind of done my own research, and from what I can tell, so I'm not talking about parklands. I'm talking about Bureau of Land Management lands. And these are lands that they already rent out. They already lease out to loggers, miners, ranchers. And these are basically mostly west of the Mississippi. But it's a huge amount of land. But if you kind of estimate all the Bureau of Land Management land and all these stockpiles of resources and structures and buildings, and a lot of federal buildings aren't even used, they're underused. But if you're closing down federal agencies, you don't need them anyway. So at most, you could say it's $5 trillion, maybe. These are just rough estimates. And of course, if you try to sell them all at once, the value is going to be even down. So basically, even if the government sold all these assets, we're still 30 trillion in debt. So we are in serious trouble. So the balanced budget amendment would be one of them. And that's what Newt Gingrich accomplished in the 1990s, the contract with America. They didn't pass a balanced budget amendment, but they actually balanced the budget at least once, maybe 2 years in the late 1990s. And again, the economy was booming as far as I was concerned. It was great. So end public debt, balance the budget, and start paying off this public debt by obviously downsizing the federal government. I like to use the term, the government should own nothing and love it, because they really have no business.
The World Economic Forum, turn it on.
Right. It's the government that, the government is a referee and not a player. They need to back off and not participate. It's the property is for us, we the people. So that would be another. That's so. What is that? Four planks of the Declaration of Independence, but there's others. And I called them cannonballs in my video on the beach. And every time the cannonball went up, it said something. Oh, I would say the foreign policy. So this is part of the pillars of MAGA as well. No pointless wars. No more pointless wars where we're overseas for decades and decades trying to nation build. That's just insane. I mean, if you think about it, I grew up with the Vietnam War, and it was so bad that we didn't go in. The United States wasn't involved in any war for 15 years or more, just because the Vietnam War was such a disaster for everybody. And so, but then we ended up doing worse than the Vietnam Wars with Afghanistan and Iraq, and just decades long. And I just try to tune it out, because how do you stop it? It's just so awful. And of course the inflation that it causes, because you're spending all this money and you're not producing goods with it. So things get more expensive. But so another thing would be no pointless wars. And so far President Trump is following that, because so he got involved in Venezuela. And I'm like, I was in Mahoning County at the GOP headquarters, and then somebody from the Youngstown TV station said, "Hey," they put me in front of a camera and lights and said, "What do you think about the Venezuela bombing?" And I didn't even know about it. It was it happened just that day, and they were asking me on camera, and I was like, I really don't approve of foreign wars. This is not what I voted for, but I didn't realize what the plan was or what it was about. I didn't know about it. So in retrospect, I'm like, so that makes sense. First of all, it's in our hemisphere, and it was a very specific goal where they went in and went out. And same thing with Iran, the bombing the nuclear sites. You go in, you do the job, you take it out, and then you go out. So that is what I call a results-oriented foreign policy. And I think that's definitely, we should continue that if we have to, but keep it in our hemisphere. And then another thing would be, as far as manifest destiny of the Western Hemisphere, like definitely we should have Greenland. We should control the Western Hemisphere. This is what the Monroe Doctrine was, and it was about, once we had established ourselves in the early to mid 1800s, we didn't want the European powers to come back at us, because my video about the War of 1812 is, the British were trying to invade the United States through Ohio in a second front. So the British had already invaded up through the Potomac, and they had sacked and burned the capital of the United States. And so they were going to have a second front coming in through Ohio. This is in 1813, when the Battle of Lake Erie not only repelled the British fleet in Lake Erie, but they captured the entire British fleet, which has never happened. And this is where the phrase "don't give up the ship" comes from. It comes from the battle flag of Commodore Perry. And I'm holding the battle flag, "Don't give up the ship." It is blowing in the breeze and the waves are crashing, and I'm saying, "Don't give up the ship." And it's pretty dramatic. That's my background in advertising. But so it's a symbol of how we need to not give up. As things look so bad, we can't give up fighting for what's ours. And ours is our own life, liberty, and property. We can't give up fighting for it, because nobody else is going to fight for it.
I saw something else in some of your information. The Federal Reserve Bank. You talked about shutting that down. What are your thoughts on the Federal Reserve Bank?
Well, that's another part of the Declaration of Independence, because inflation, of course, is theft. So money is not time. People say, "Oh, money is time," right? Or time is money. Because it does. It costs time. It costs money, your time. But really, money is time, because time is the precious resource that we all have. Time is the most limited resource of everybody. No matter, you could have tons of money or you could have a little money, but we all have a set amount of time on Earth. And so money banks your time. So you trade your time. You go to work and you trade in your time, but also your effort and your skills and your experience, and sometimes, your blood and your sweat and your tears. And in exchange, you're going to get money back so that you can bank that for future use. Now, if that money that you banked, that you earned in the past is devalued, then that's taxation, and that's theft, really, because they're stealing your very life. This was your time that you have, your limited time on earth, that now the government is stealing from you because they're devaluing the money. So it's very insidious and an evil form of taxation. Inflation is a tax, and you could say that the total tax burden, the total direct tax burden of Americans right now on average is around 30% on average. But then if you add the inflation tax, because that's what you're losing every year in purchasing power, it's about 10 to 20% on top of that, because the Commerce Department says, oh, inflation is about 3% a year. No, that's not what I've seen. No way. It's more like 10 or 20% annually, at least for the last 5 years. And so then your total tax burden really is about 50%. And if you think about in 1776, they declared independence from England over 1.5% tax. And on the colonists, we've come a long way, and we definitely need a new war of independence. And I'm not really talking about a shooting war necessarily, but we need to go to war, legislatively, and make it's just a course correction, really. It may seem radical to the people in the deep state, the people who work for the government. They may think this is radical, this is crazy, but it's not really.
There's a lot of folks wanting to maintain their control over the people, and it sounds like you want to allow the people to have the control for themselves, little autonomy, which is great. Yeah.
But it's going to be better for the whole country. It'll be better for the government. The government will be, first of all, the government will be relieved of a lot of responsibilities that they can't deliver. But then also they're going to be raking in the dough. They're going to be raking in so much money and at lower tax rates and tariffs, and they'll have the money they need, and they won't have the responsibilities, and they won't be blamed because it'll be the private sector handling things that you need. Basically, all goods and services should be in the private sector. And the founders knew this, and they understood it. And that's why none of this was in, like roads and bridges. That's another thing. See, I worked along roads. This was my job. If you ever see surveyors or locators and they're walking alongside of the road, they're in their safety yellow, and
Sure.
they're looking for property corners. They're looking for underground facilities like valves and pipelines. That's what I did. So I spent years and years and hours walking along roads, and I'm thinking, man, this is such a gold mine, because the right of way is just a strip of real estate, and it's got so much potential that if a private sector or a private company owned it, they could just totally make a mint, because you can. And I lived in New York City, so I understand that there's like New York City has levels of, it's not just the surface, but it's the subsurface, all the utilities, the water pipes, the sewer pipes, and then below that is the subway trains. And so that's how cities and right-of-ways can be built. You can stack roads, you can bury roads. At the very bottom, you could have underground railroads for heavy freight. Then you could have the trucks drive on a road above the rail lines, and then you could have the cars at the surface, and the roads could be heated so they don't melt, so they didn't get ice or snow on them. And they could be lit, so there could be advertising and safety directions. And then on top of that, you could have another layer of like motorcycles and bicycles. And then on top of that, you could have, walkers and pedestrians, and maybe a wildlife corridor. I mean, it's unlimited. Think of what you could do if the private sector could build roads. And I mean, they would own the roads. If they own the road, that means they set what the speed limit is, they set what the toll is, and there may not be a toll, because they'll have a joint venture with the people along the roads. The roads deliver all these people and all this transported goods. So people they'd be joint ventures to where the roads would be practically free. So this is the 21st century that I dreamed about as a kid in the 1960s, because I was really into the future. I'm really into science fiction, and I thought by now, by 2026, we would have high-speed roads where you could drive 150, 200 miles an hour, safely. I mean, wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun.
The government isn't going to build these roads. They'll never build these roads. They can't
No.
even keep the roads up that were built 50 to 100 years ago. They're falling apart, especially in Northeast Ohio. Now, where my daughter lives in California, those roads are pretty nice.
Yeah.
There's no potholes or anything.
That's good. So we talked about a lot tonight. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to let everybody know?
Well, I will be follow my website is www.markzetzerforcongress.com. But mainly in my social media, I have 8 social media sites. Mark for MOGA, MARKFORMOGA for Make Ohio Great Again. And I'll be putting out this Declaration of Independence for 2026. This will be my legislative list that I want all the Republicans to look at, adopt. Don't just take my word for it. Give me some feedback. What is the legislative goals? What are the things and the benefits that Republicans can offer so that we win the midterms in a landslide, that we gain huge majorities in the House and Senate, and that we can give President Trump what he needs, the leadership that he needs, and the help to make the last 2 years or 3 years to make Ohio great again and America great again. So that's called leadership. That's what we do in the private sector to get things done. And that's where I come from.
Excellent. Mark Zetzer, thank you for joining Truman's Town Hall, and good luck on your campaign. Check back in with us closer to the primary, and we'll have to do this again.
It's going to be ramping up.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.